This will be a day long remembered. Now I am the master.
Welcome to another episode of Legends and Theories. And welcome to my review of Batman Arkham Shadow. And just as a disclaimer, I have not actually played the game, I've only watched the campaign. I just cannot justify spending $300 on a console for a single game. So, if the company wants to send it to me, I totally would accept that, because I know they did that for other people. But I'm probably way too small of a channel for them to do that, so I could dream, but my biggest criticism of this game is that it's locked to a single console. Yes, there are a few versions, and they made a $300 version of this console, but that's still $300, and as I said, I cannot justify spending $300 for a console where there's really only one game I'd want to play on it. But besides that, I have nothing but praise for this game. This game is incredible. I watched the Batman Arkham videos playthrough of it, which is why this just took so long to come out, since they, well, one showed you all the side quests and all of the different alternate options you had. There aren't too many, but they did show all of them, so they needed time to edit that all together. But yeah, honestly, as I said, this game is something I just wish was released on consoles. Exact same story, and if they even kept the gameplay the same in first person point of view and just found a way to port this to PS5, Xbox, and PC, I think that they'd make so much more money because, yeah, they can make money off of people buying this new console, but most people aren't. And just go back to that criticism, this is a continuation of a massive game franchise. I mean, I think really in the superhero community, the Arkham games are the gold standard of video games and are some of, if not the most beloved superhero games to have ever been released. So, again, that's just a major criticism I have. But now going into the campaign itself, I'll try not to mention that exclusivity anymore. But in the campaign, there is just a really incredible story. The character of the Rat King was just a great mystery, and it definitely keeps you guessing the entire time. It gives you a lot of suspects, and unlike the Arkham Knight, it isn't super obvious. In fact, I think that in that basically Jason Todd is really the only option. But in this game, the identity of the Rat King, and I will be going into spoilers from this point onward, so if you are one of the people who actually owns the console and wants this game, I recommend not watching this, or if you haven't seen the campaign played out on a really whatever channel you want, I'm not going to tell you where to go, but you could also check that out because, as I said, the story to this is incredible, and what honestly is the best part of it is its sort of love for Arkham Origins. That's probably what the most interesting thing in this is because this is set about 6 months or 6 or 7 months after Arkham Origins. Yeah, 7 months. It's set in July, and it's probably set a few months after the events of Arkham Origins Blackgate, which has never had a reference in the main series up until this point. It's a game that has existed, but that is really it. I think a lot of people didn't even consider this game to have actually happened because there are zero references to it. But it does set some interesting things up, like having a few characters that only appeared in that, like Bronze Tiger, but also it fully confirms that the Suicide Squad has existed since Arkham Origins, and I don't know if that's going to be acknowledged in Kill the Justice League. As I said, I genuinely have no idea. I still haven't finished the season 2, and I think they're at the end of season 3 right now. Well, at least when I recorded this, I'm probably going to be finishing that up since this is the day after I finished Outlaws. So I probably would have finished, or at least done part of season 2 by this point, because that was my plan of what to do next. But just going back to this, as I said, the entire thing with this story was interesting. It also gives you a bunch of characters that have had absolutely no or very minor appearances in Arkham. It goes and develops characters that we've wanted to see, like the ventriloquist in Scarface. It also brings up the character of the rat catcher, who really has only had a few references here and there. And then it also goes into some characters we never had mentions of before, like Lockup, and more development for both Harley Quinn and Scarecrow. But then we go and have just the greatest turnaround for the character of Two-Face in this universe. The Two-Face that's been in the previous games, in Arkham City and Arkham Knight, really, there's nothing too special about him. He's sort of just there, but there's just so much more interesting stuff that could be done with the character, and everything done with him here is just genuinely incredible. The fact that the Two-Face persona started off as the Rat King is interesting, but it just has one of those weird moments like with the Smart Bane in Arkham Origins, where it doesn't really feel like it fits the character that appears in the Rocksteady games, because he's just a full-on criminal there, not really wanting to punish criminals or anything. But I guess there's that explanation here where he has the memory loss, which is essentially the exact same thing they did for Bane. And here's the thing. Yes, this does create a little bit of a plot hole, but I honestly don't care because that gives us just a really great story. In fact, I think that just the fact that we have the Rat King in here, and even though Bruce does reveal his identity to Harvey and he forgets everything, it just works for the story because, as I said, this makes a great story and a great mystery, and the creation of Two-Face is just even more tragic, where I'd really have to know more specifics, but it was either caused by the undercover Bruce Wayne or Scarecrow. I've seen people talk about both, where it says people say that it looks like that Scarecrow just tossed the prototype fear gas onto him, but also I've heard people say that it was Bruce who hit it, so I'd have to look more closely at the footage. But ultimately, I think that it is just an interesting little detail in here that Bruce was there when Harvey became Two-Face, and this entire backstory between both Bruce Wayne and Harvey Dent, which is completely created for this, was really interesting. My only real criticism with that is, well, honestly, I love the character of Leslie Tompkins and her helping to go and raise Bruce. I just feel like it just feels so odd because Bruce Wayne is almost always raised by Alfred, so I just think that sort of takes something away from the character of Alfred, who's always there for Bruce. I would prefer it if it was, and maybe it is because it wasn't super clear, because we do have the fact that Harvey does return home, so this could have been a place that Bruce was going just to kind of help him with everything that's been going on, and Alfred still did raise him because it's just one of those things where it feels like it might be taking away from the character of Alfred to give more of the character of Leslie Tompkins. And I'm conflicted on it. I said I both enjoy it, but I also don't love what they're doing with Alfred. But I'd say that's probably just for someone else to want to hear feedback on that because I said I could think both ways on it. I can see what they're doing, but I also don't like the sort of unintentional disrespect it sort of gives to Alfred. So just continuing on with the story, as I said, there's just so many crazy things that happens in it. Oh, another character I forgot to mention is I think that it's really great that we see more development for Carmine Falcone in this. They do go with the Falcone pronunciation, but just with my favorite iterations of him both having using the pronunciation of Falcone, that I'm gonna go with that. And of course, that is in both Gotham and the Penguin, which let's just say when you have the two probably most prominent versions of him with that pronunciation, I'd rather go with that, even though they do make the reference to it where they're saying that this version at least wants it to be said Falcone and was super mad that someone called him Falcone. So, yeah, there's that. And his boss fight looks a lot of fun. And the entire VR thing is interesting, as I said. And if VR was a lot more of an accessible media, or if this game was sort of like something like Star Wars Squadrons or Hitman or a few other games which had a VR option, I think that would be a lot better, and it would give basically all Arkham fans a chance to play this game. I'm gonna try and make that be the last time I talk about that, but yeah, as I said, I just really don't like the fact that I have to only watch this because this game just looks so incredible, and I really, really wish I had the opportunity to play it. But as I said, $300 is it's something I just can't justify for a single game. But yeah, honestly, just looking at this and just some of the characters with it, I think that it's also really interesting. Yeah, the entire thing of being able to play the game as matches Malone, and this breaks sort of the Arkham tradition where every game takes place only over a single night. I was able to figure that out pretty quickly when they said the Day of Wrath is going to be in 7 days at the first part of it. And I honestly was thinking, like, are they finally going to break the Arkham tradition where the game takes place on multiple days? And it turns out I was right. You spend the day as Matches Malone, and then you spend the nights as Batman, using both identities to go and create your cover identity, but also to investigate into the Rat King and using the information he's able to pull out as matches to help him as Batman at night. But looking at it, the most interesting thing is the inclusion of Joe Chill in this. And obviously, they call him Joe for the entire game up until the end, but I think basically any Batman fan could have figured out that this is Joe Chill. And in fact, I thought that because it was such an obvious reveal that Joe was going to be the Rat King, my thinking was that he was basically going to be lying about really everything, and him saying he deserves to be here, and that was actually because he was the Rat King. And I think that it would have been something about him killing the Waynes and him essentially wanting to take down the system and making him more of a radicalized villain to give Bruce a far more personal enemy in this. But I think what they did also really worked with him having this close relationship with Harvey, was sort of there at the back of my mind, but I just felt like, I don't know, I feel like we would have, as I said, we know about Two-Face at the end, and we know he's an established character, so I just didn't think it could be him. It just kept popping up there in the back of my mind, but I just kept ignoring it. I was like, I don't know, I just felt like he was a red herring and that it was ultimately going to be Joe Chill. So I do like that ending with Two-Face and Bruce just kind of being devastated about that, with them basically being brothers in this universe. But as I said, it was just something that when I was watching the campaign, it felt like Harvey was sort of a red herring, and I was thinking of it. I was like, no, 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 there's just no way they would do that. But like they did with Penguin last week, or just under last week, since I'm releasing this on Saturday. So yeah, when there's things where you don't think they're gonna do it unless they really are great storytellers and don't care about doing some traditional thing. I think that it is just a little great twist at the end, and it's ultimately just really cool. Going throughout it, there's also just some interesting things with you being able to play through this game. There is just so many different, crazy things you can do, and I haven't seen any of the post-game gameplay where you're able to go through Blackgate as Batman instead of Matches, since Matches Malone is essentially framed for all of the Rat King's crimes, with everyone thinking that he was the Rat King, and Bruce wanting to save Harvey allows it to be thought of like that, so he is able to go and have Harvey basically be try to save him, but we will know that's eventually going to fail as he will become Two-Face and continues to be committing crimes and being Two-Face even after Batman's assumed death at the end of Arkham Knight. And if you want to say, well, you could have actually died, I don't take Suicide Squad as canon. I still think that it is what was intended at the end of Arkham Knight for Bruce to have faked his death, because really there was no one else that could have been the Shadow Batman at the end. Like the Nightmare Batman, because so even if you want to say, yeah, I think Suicide Squad isn't canon, I'd still say that Batman did fake his death at the end of Arkham Knight, but that's just a completely different story. So just going and continuing on to everything else in this game. As I said, the gameplay looks a lot of fun, although there are some things that, for the sake of VR, they had to change around. For example, the explosive gel is no longer put down by Batman and is just shot out of a basically explosive gel gun. And that is honestly just, it's just, kind of a little weird since all the times when you're able to launch explosive gel in the games, and this is in games that take place past this, I think specifically was Arkham Knight, where you could shoot explosive gel at people. It isn't powerful enough to go and take down a wall, and Batman always says, I need something more powerful. I need to actually put the explosive gel down on the wall. I'm gonna give you the exact wording for it, but if you ever try that with a quickfire gadget, you would see that coming up as a prompt. But also, you have the thing where you pull the batarang out of your chest, and that's never really been a thing in the Arkham games. And there's just honestly just, also the interesting fact that because you only have like really one batarang in this, I don't really know why they did that. You could just have Batman easily reaching into his belt and throwing the seemingly infinite amount of batarangs he has in the Arkham games. You can look at that, and honestly, it is just, it's interesting enough, and obviously they have these changes solely due to the reason that, as I said, they needed to make things a little more interesting in VR. But yeah, honestly, just going through really everything, the story is, honestly, as I said, phenomenal. I think that they did such a great job with it, and I hope they can find a way to port this game onto consoles because I think it would make just so much more money. And even if it was just to PC, I still think it'd make a lot of money. So yeah, honestly, that's something that's pretty interesting. As I said, also it's interesting to see sort of just love for Arkham Origins since this game hasn't seen a remaster or really anything. In fact, I don't think you, only if you own the Steam version of this game is the only way you can get its DLC because it's no longer available for at least Xbox because I tried to get it for my Xbox 360 and it just wasn't available and I have no idea about PlayStation. You might be able to get it through PS Plus because I think the game is one of the games you can stream, but it is a shame with Arkham Origins not really being given too much respect, being made by a different studio, but still, I think that it's ultimately going to be just something pretty interesting and unique for Arkham. I would love to see another game like this, and apparently Rocksteady is getting a chance to redeem themselves after Suicide Squad and will be getting to make another Batman Arkham game. Obviously, we would need Roger Craig Smith to play Batman because of the tragic death of Kevin Conroy, and he was also incredible in this game. He played, well, really three roles. He would have played Bruce, Matches, and Batman, so that's honestly just really great. Those little flashbacks to Bruce's childhood was also pretty interesting to build up just so many things, and honestly, I just think that it was just such a great story. It goes and helps to humanize Batman a little more, and then also shows just how much Gotham is a terrible place. There's also the entire concept of sort of the shadow and that being the darkest part of someone. Everything with Scarecrow and, well, Harley was pretty interesting with them both being doctors at Blackgate, and the fact that Scarecrow seems to be behind so many of these villains' creations. It looks like, although isn't really fully confirmed, that he is the person who creates Harley Quinn because, well, I think Harley was a really enjoyable character in this. It just doesn't feel like she's the person who becomes Harley Quinn because she just feels so really different. And yeah, honestly, it was just so odd with her because she seemed like this really like good and great actor. And it's just so crazy to think that this is the person who becomes Harley Quinn. But at the well, towards the end of the game, you see that Joker has been transferred out of maximum security, solitary confinement, and that's done by Harley. So I would assume that is her after being fired by Crane, taking this opportunity to basically go into her infatuation with Joker, and after that, she goes and falls in love with him and breaks him out. There's also the fact that he is there when, as well, prototype fear gas is the cause of, well, Harvey Dent becoming Two Face. So there's also that, which is interesting. And as looking into so many of these other characters, there is just so many great and kind of crazy moments throughout this. It is just really interesting, as I said, and really everyone is just incredible in this. It's really interesting to see all these different villains and all these different characters at an earlier part in the Arkham timeline. And Arkham games are just some of my favorite games really ever. I'm far more into single player stories than into online games, so since main Arkham games are all single player, I really just enjoy that, and that is just it's just really great about this game. I think that Roger Craig Smith did a great job filling in for filling in as Batman after we lost Kevin Conroy, and I love to see him throughout this. That little appearance from Joker was pretty great, where they're basically saying like, yeah, we're not going to go with the extraordinarily obvious twist again, where the Joker is actually the villain. Seeing all these more minor Batman characters, a lot who we've really wanted to see in the franchise, was really great, especially characters like Scarface and Ratcatcher, who really have only been there in the background, but also development of characters like Two-Face and getting even more in depth with Harley and with Scarecrow before they became the villains they were was really interesting. We also see that, as I said, Scarecrow is just always this terrible person. So yeah, honestly, this was just such a great game. Also, that entire thing of Bruce's sort of fear gas, light, well, early fear gas dream state was pretty interesting. One thing was, since obviously I wasn't playing the game, I was sort of falling asleep at that point, so I did think it was pretty interesting, but I'll be fully honest, I probably should have went to bed at that point, but I was just so intrigued with it. I kept watching, and yeah, so it was just honestly, I don't know, I remember now what was going on at that point. It was still earlier in the day, and I just hit some of those points during the day where you just get completely exhausted, and that's why wasn't paying too much attention. Because if it was at night, honestly, I probably could have went to bed, but I think it was like 4 or 5 in the afternoon. So yeah, honestly, this game was it was just a lot of fun. I really, really hope for the final time that they find a way to port this onto consoles, even if they do a lot of changes to it. I would not mind paying $60 to $70 to play this game on the PS5 because this game just looks it just looks like so much fun, and I wish I could have played it. And there are like just as a small side note, some other types of changes in there, like Batman uses for just a single scene one gadget that would have just completely changed how all of the Arkham games are played, which is this little thing he used to cut open the bars on his cell. And how that would have changed everything is very simple. He could have used that to get so many Riddler trophies if he had this little laser in all the other games. Instead of doing all these overly convoluted puzzles, he could have just cut a hole in the chain link fence and used that to go and get a Riddler trophy. And speaking of him, this is the first Arkham related game that doesn't include the character of the Riddler at all, unless I missed something like there are some references to him, but unless there's something I missed when or that was missed when I was getting the watch through of this. This is the only Arkham related piece of content that doesn't involve the Riddler. Well, actually, maybe Arkham Origins Blackgate was also one of those, but again, that game is so forgettable because it was only available on, I think it was like the PS Vita and like the Nintendo 3DS. It's also available on Steam now, which is the only reason I've ever played it. And I haven't played this game since the first time I played it on a stream like 2 or 3 years ago, so who knows, maybe I'll replay it just on my own in the next few weeks, but Yeah, as I said, this game is pretty interesting, and I do want to know what you think about it. As I said, this game is just looks so fun. It's so different. And you have also these other ways of climbing around where I think mainly just to not have the game look odd, you don't have stuff like using the grapnel boost or being able to glide as much. And it seems like you're having a lot harder time moving around the city where there's a point in the early game where Batman says, I can't grapple onto this ledge. And it's just in some location in what would eventually become Arkham City. It's also, where most of Origins does also take place, so it is just kind of odd. So, as I said, this game was just really intriguing. It was also just a lot of fun, and as I said, I'd love to see this be taken and ported to other consoles. And then, final thing is the side missions, which are really just collectibles, is they look fun enough. They have stuff where you have to take Rat King stuff. You have to go and destroy a bunch of like glass rats. You have to destroy some like rat bombs, which are basically the same thing as Joker teeth and radios. That's all interesting. And then there's just some fun interview tapes that are spread throughout the game. So yeah, honestly, as I said, this has some different things. There's also like the fact that he uses a bunch of like basically SIM cards. So that's interesting, and honestly, I think this is just a fun game. I want to know what you think about it. Please leave me in the comments, and I'll see you all in the next episode of Legends and Theories. Thank you for watching this episode of Legends and Theories. Please subscribe, like the video, share the video, leave a comment, check out the video on screen, and may the Force be with you.